and then basically I put a hammock, and that's the beginning of our relationship.
That is so crazy because you're probably one of the only people on planet Earth right now that has a human-based insight and experience into like the hunter-gatherer days and now traditional current society. From working with indigenous tribes to traveling all over the globe to help save our planet's most endangered species, Pierre Fidenci gives us a window into the amazing work that ESI does on an international scale. Keep in mind, Pierre did this podcast from a very remote area in the Philippines, so the audio to start might be a little bit choppy, but it does get a lot better as we go. So, let's do it.
Too many days in the darkness, without a glimpse of the light. Running tired and broken and scared, but I swear I'll never give up the fight. I see you broken and beat, head pulled down over your eyes. Every part of you wants to surrender, but darling, you were meant to survive.
Well, thanks for coming on today, Pierre. It is so awesome to have such an incredible organization come on my podcast because like everything you guys do is so specific. It's so unique, let alone being international. Europe, Asia, Africa, it's so worldly too. And, you can see the world map behind me. That's like exactly what I'm trying to make this podcast about. So, for the people listening and maybe hearing about you guys for the very first time, would you be able to paint them a picture of, who Endangered Species International is and really your goals and what your mission is?
So basically, thank you for inviting me for the podcast first.
Yeah.
And I'm very happy to share about Endangered Species Internationals. Basically, it was created in 2007 by me and some of the board members, but it's not something that came out of me in 2007. It's a passion since I was very young, 16 years old, and I was already around the world, starting at 17. Learning about the natural world, the animals, and also trying to do my part. So even at 21 years old, I already had some projects for 3 years in Costa Rica and gathering some funds from Europe. So it's not something that just came out recently or the last 20 years, but it's my life basically. And Endangered Species International. The main mission is to stop the species extensions because it's really a huge issue, even though we don't talk about it, and by saving mostly wild habitat because one of the main causes of species decline is the destruction or the alteration of the natural habitat where all those species, animals and plants live.
Yeah. I've from my research, I know the habitat is always the seems like to be like the number one cause of animal extinction, especially with the mammals. People that the species that everyone sees. The tigers, the elephants. Something that caught my eye too, looking at the mission of you guys was really you guys are so strongly committed to reversing the trend of human-induced species and extinction. And I never thought about it because I'd always thought extinction from species was always human-induced. Are there any non-human induced related reasons species end up approaching extinction?
Okay, so that's a very good question. So the human-induced expansion is very recent. Okay, now there's other wildlife extensions. That occurs throughout the history of the Earth. There was, for example, like the very famous dinosaurs who disappeared. That there was natural extensions. Probably due to volcanoes, eruptions, and maybe also meteorites. We're not so sure. It could be actually a combination of all of that. But there are natural extensions, even within big events, meaning that any species that is on Earth will naturally evolve into a different species and disappear. That's what will happen to us eventually, even though some people will not want to happen to us, but eventually Homo sapiens,
It's almost like
our
evolving.
species, exactly, and will change into something else, evolve into something else. Just to give you an idea, in the natural extension background rate, we lose about 700 species in 10,000 years. So that's a normal way. Okay, so you will have some species will disappear naturally. So it's okay to have that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And I mean, that's a lot of species, and you only think about the future too. It's like, what's the time frame and what's this world going to look like in, another couple hundred years, couple thousand years? What,
Okay. So yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah. And what are some of like the degrees of being endangered, from being a species that's thriving and you have a lot, your numbers are high in comparison to like the Sumatran tigers where, their numbers are starting to dwindle a little bit. What's the kind of like the spectrum? How does it go in cause of concern?
Okay. So the decline to where it's very concerning, where the species is classified as critically endangered, meaning on the verge to be totally extinct, it can varies broadly depending on the cause that causing this problem, and the location, the species also. The species react different according to the different threats going towards them. So basically, it can be very fast, like we have seen with for example, the mountain gorillas. They went down very fast due to lack of habitat and hunting, finally. But and some species are not very visible, meaning that they will go down, but they will not be under our radar. And then we will find out that they are so rare and almost extinct almost the last minute, I would say.
Oh, man, that stinks. You don't even have a warning.
Yeah, there's no warning. Exactly. We haven't seen the population declines, and suddenly we just see a few individuals, or we discover the species already in critically endangered state, meaning that they are ready to be declined. It happens many places around the world, especially in island habitat, where we discover new species and we discover, oh my God, it's only found in this tiny island, in this little cave like frogs. And if we don't protect that cave, this is finished, basically.
Oh man, yeah, because I'm sure that takes a lot of time to implement, your barriers and your checkpoints before people reach, more higher levels of concern of being endangered. And then all of a sudden, like, if you don't have that that window to even do it, it's got to be hard to even stop it when it gets to a certain degree, right?
Right. And also, for example, we are talking about extension, which means like that's the first major issue. And we have a second issue that is almost as big as the first one, which is defaunation, which means that we are losing animals around us. Okay, the insect are gone, for example, in Europe and North America, and also in part of China. 70% of the insect are gone. It does not mean that they're already extinct, or they are going to be extinct in the next 10 years, but the populations are so low that we don't see them anymore. They are not there anymore. They are found in some certain areas where still protected, etc. But we used to see them all around us, okay, not too long ago, and they are not there anymore. So we have two problems. The main one is extension of some species who are completely going to go extinct. We know those ones already. And then the defaunation, those who are not there anymore. And we know that, we are aware of that, but we're still not acting on that. You see the two problems.
Yeah.
And all of that, we can just say, for example, we have about 8 million species, animal species and plants. And we know for sure that we have 1 million that's threatened to be extinct very soon. 1 million out of the 8 million.
1 million out of 8 million insects, you said?
Yes, correct.
Oh, wow. Yeah, because the insects are the hardest, I'm sure, to keep track of, count, and kind of plan for, right?
They can be hard, and it also can be easy, because you can do some very easy surveys, sampling surveys.
Okay.
But for the insect, we have a clear idea that most of the insects are declining is because of the pollution and the agriculture that we are implementing around the world with all the chemicals and the pesticides. That's the main cause of the decline of the insects. And I want to just highlight one thing. We are talking about global warming all the time. I mean, I will not say all the time, but it's quite making the news. But we rarely talk about the wildlife extension, the species extension, even though it's occurring right now. Even if we remove global warming from the equation, species extension and the decline of all life on Earth will occur no matter what, because the problems is not global warming at this point. Of course, global warming will add to the problem. It will cause some species to decline faster. There's no problem with that. However, if we remove the global warming into the equations, the problem will be exactly the same.
That's interesting. That is very interesting.
Simply because the main cause is habitat destruction, illegal and overhunting, overfishing around the planet. The population growth has grown to a point where it's invading all the home and natural habitat of many species, and many animals can adapt with human beings, but many of them cannot. They cannot cohabit with human beings. That's a reality. That's why also ESI, we are fighting to create more protected area so the animals can have a home too. And also they can live with the indigenous people. Indigenous people, and it's different than, than, for example, our lifestyle. Our lifestyle, we have to recognize that is very destructive. Okay, we drive cars, we build roads. All these roads are posing a problem also for many animals. They cannot cross it, or if they do, like snakes, they might, crossed over. But if you, the indigenous people who live in the rainforest of the Amazon or in Africa, they don't have the same impact, obviously.
Yeah, I was actually on my news show on YouTube, actually, a couple months ago. I had chatted because I thought this was the coolest thing, and maybe you haven't heard of it, so maybe you'll get a kick out of it. Over in Agoura Hills, California, there's a wildlife crossing that just began construction this past April, with expectation to be completed in about 2 years. And it's going to be called the Wallace Annenberg Wildlife Crossing, and it actually has an entire road of vegetation that spans over a 10-lane freeway that allows for the safe crossing of wildlife. And I thought that was like the coolest thing, because it's like thinking outside the box. It's the definition of helping animals, which then helps human welfare, because the animals have a safe path to cross, and then they're also not getting in the way of traffic. So like, you're not going to have to deal with the accidents and the danger too. And it kind of allows for a nice mutual agreement. So in the urban areas, I thought that was a very good. I'm surprised that we're just doing that now, honestly.
Correct. And we were talking about that, and already in the 70s, even in the 80s, people trying to push this kind of mitigation, I would say, or I should say, yeah. So some projects, and it's kind of late, but yeah, you're right. Yeah.
It's never too late.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, when you had mentioned over hunting too, that brought up in mind. What's going on in Congo right now, and especially with indigenous people, where I've read that they tend to sometimes either overhunt, or that's just kind of like the food that's around them. And coming from your perspective, how is it that you're able to kind of help, say like in the Congo where maybe there's an overhunting of gorillas and you don't want the gorillas to go extinct. So you help these indigenous people try to maybe find other alternatives to food or so they don't absolutely make the animals go extinct over there, but that they're still getting their protein, they're still being able to hunt, but at a sustainable level. Because I'm sure that there's got to be a little bit of unsustainability, even if that is something that they absolutely rely on. And I'm just so interested in how you guys especially work with indigenous people as well, because you're able to establish the trust, maintain that trust. I think that's like the most amazing thing ever too. So I mean, if you could just open up a little bit about how you guys are able to do that.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Yeah, so as you mentioned earlier, we have a project in Congo to save Western lowland gorillas. So it's also an endangered species, and the main one of the main threats it's illegal hunting. So basically, the indigenous people in all our projects are our best friends, even though some of them, will be up and illegally hunting the gorillas. And why I'm saying the best friend? First, because they know the area, the nature, and the forest extremely well. A good hunter knows every animal almost. He knows the pathway how to go in the forest, etc. So we always make friends with them. We partner together, and we hire the illegal hunters to work with us. So basically, to convert those people into from hunters, illegal hunters, into protectors of the rainforest and the animals. So how do we do that? Basically, we go through a training process, and also changing the mind and trying to bring back the old mind back into the mind of the people, because basically the gorillas in the past, people were rarely hunting gorillas. They were like regarded as almost like a god figure to the local communities, the local indigenous people. But the hunting increased the last about 50 years, especially the last 20 years, because the urban population increased. So the people living in the urban population got more money, and they got this idea that if you eat gorilla, you will get stronger. And so they put more money on the table, say, bring me some gorillas, I want to eat that. So this is not necessarily something that was occurring so much into the past, even though they were hunting sometimes some gorillas, but it was quite not a problem. So we also work in the urban areas to stop the selling of the gorillas. So we spend a considerable time into the farmers market, monitoring, going after those who knows they cannot sell the gorillas, to stop them gorillas. So like this, the buyer comes, there is nothing else buying beside other type of animals. So that's the second thing. But also we create a protected area where we can employ permanently the people who are hunting for the gorillas, and they can have an income. So that's one way. And we bring ecotourism, so people can go into the forest, visit, learn about the wildlife, the amazing wildlife of the Congo, including the forest elephants and etc., and have an income.
No, sounds like a tall order too. That's a lot of work just to help maintain just that one. I can only imagine how much resources, staff that takes, and maintaining those relationships over there too, because it's like you're helping them too, but you're also there's some figures over there too that are also trying to still, maintain their income, their sales, their approach on that. So it's an interesting dynamic you guys kind of have to kind of balance on there. I'd love to learn like your approach with indigenous people as well, and how you're able to first either meet with them, establish the relationship, increase that trust, because a lot of times people think of the indigenous people today, of like the centennials who live on, the island between India and Thailand, where, they see them as hostile and, especially
Right.
especially over there too, where it's like the only island in the world where like no one's allowed to go on because of the hostility, and how are you able to just like establish that trust with them, maintain it when maybe those tribes haven't had like the best relationships in the past with people, or maybe they and you guys are like that new group trying to like get in and increase their sustainability without them thinking, oh, they're just trying to take away our hunting, or they're trying to take away this supply that we have.
So first of all, I spent considerable time in the field with the indigenous people in the past, whatever it's in the Amazon, in Southeast Asia, and in Africa. So I had already a sense before we started the project in Congo, how to a little bit deal with that. So basically, there are some indigenous tribes who don't want to be in contact with human. I mean human, and what I mean with other tribe, or especially with us from the other world. In this case, you respect and you don't try to of course interfere with their wish. Now, those who are open to the world, it can take a long process, but always step by steps. You have to come back every time. It goes little by little, and especially you have to get the confidence of the or the trust of the chief of the group or the village. Once you have that, of course, you're not going to take their land away. You're not going to take their right away. That's the opposite. You have to explain to them that you're going to give them more power, because we are here to protect their land,
which benefits them.
Ancestral land. We're not going to come here. Exactly. Yeah, we're not here to cut the trees or even to have a mining project. So we are here to protect the area, and at the same time to make sure that they can still hunt. But of course, and they understand very quickly the importance of protecting endangered species. Actually, they already know they are endangered. It's not like we are not giving a new information. They saw the trend going down. It's completely different. Before, the gorillas were not as afraid. Now in this area, for example, I'm talking about in Congo, it's very difficult to see the gorillas because they know they're being hunted. But in the past, it wasn't the case. You could see a group of gorilla not too far, and just like to have an amazing time. But nowadays, it's not possible anymore. They've been hunting for the last 50 years. So the entire population's behavior have changed. So by little, and of course, you have to show them trust, and you have to support them financially at the beginning. Okay, you have to bring resources that come up. You cannot just only talk. You also have to bring financial resources into the project and into the population. Now, you can also bring them ideas and training for having alternative livelihood that often can be work very well, but often also cannot work because you cannot turn, for example, somebody has been hunting all his life, all his generation, into a fisherman. It can be quite complicated. It's not that easy,
and a lot of pride, I'm sure they have,
as a foreigner or external, and there's a pride, of course, etc., etc.
Yeah. How are they hunting? Do they still use, almost like the sticks and stones saying, where they're, bow and arrows, rocks and things of that nature?
So it depends on the tribes. Some tribes do or still do use that, definitely, and some of them don't use just gun, rifles, because it's easier, obviously. But we do work with some tribes who still use like arrows and blowgun and the traditional way.
And it's amazing that you're out there with them in the woods, seeing all this too. How are you able to communicate with them?
Oh, that's the first communication, of course, is difficult. I always take guides with me who can translate and have knowledge of course of the local language or the language of the tribal that I am targeting. And with of course it's the main key is to find a good translator. That's very difficult because I'm very precise with the words, and it has to be translated also very precisely. So it cannot be diverted to something a little bit that you don't want to. So the translator is super important, and then you need to always to approach the chief first and ask him if you can be accepted and stay in the village. And if he does agree, he will give you a place to stay. So that depends on the tribal structure. There's a place for that only for people from the outside, or they will put you, or sometimes I sleep with the chief in his house. It's leave me, they offer me to stay with them, and then basically I put a hammock, and that's the beginning of our relationship.
That is so crazy, because you're probably one of the only people on planet Earth right now that has a human-based insight and experience into like the hunter-gatherer days and now traditional current society. That is insane. I love that too. I mean, you've got to be like one in a billion experience here, man. Do you get nervous when you're in these situations? Because these are, I mean, no matter how new it is, how many times you've done it, I mean, there's got to be a level of concern for yourself, right?
Well, I'm going to be very honest with you. I am not nervous. I am super, super excited. Every time I enter a new village, a new tribal area, because for me, it's a total discovery, total learning, full of exchange. And I never had any problems. Of course, I'm not going to try to go to an area where, like as I said, it's called the red zone. I would call it where you're not allowed to go in, or there is robble threats or any kind of danger. Of course, you cannot always, calculate all the dangers. There's always risks, and there's always, bad things, I would say, that will happen. But and for me it's super exciting, because also it's meaning it's the beginning of and the progress of our project.
Oh yeah, that's I mean, it's awesome stuff. I mean, you're meeting brand new people that, I mean, you've got to have some great nicknames that they've given you over the years, I'm sure, right?
Right. Yes. Oh yeah. Sure. Yes.
And you speak some languages that nobody else probably in the world speaks. Your passport has got to look like a stamp book at this point.
Right. Right. Well, I changed. They're not big enough. That's a problem. They don't have enough pages.
Yeah, that is a problem that I would love to have, man.
Yes.
Oh, that's good, man. It sounds like you love what you do. What are some other current projects you guys are in on right now?
So basically, we were trying to create more protect areas around the world, and so that's for example the Congo project. But everywhere where we are, doesn't matter if it's the Amazon basin or in East Asia or Southeast Asia, like for example in the Philippines, where I am now, we are trying to create protected area, because it's a very effective way to save species and protect their home and their habitat. Of course, it's a long process. So basically, I'll just give you an example here in the Philippines. We also are working into the ocean world. Okay, not only we are working on the forest, the land, but also in the ocean, because the ocean is also extremely endangered. We haven't mentioned that. But for example, 60% of the marine environment is significantly altered by human actions. And just take back again, back to the Philippines, not too long ago, just about 150 years ago, people were able to almost catch a fish by hands along the shorelines, with arrow, and it was so easy. They were so abundant. It was so normal. And nowadays, you can go with fishing nets and spend hours and hours on the porcelain and fish nothing, zero. Most of the big fish are already gone, it's finished. So the situation is very dire, and that's why we're spending a lot of time protecting the ocean as well.
Yeah, I love on your website, which if anybody is listening to this right now, I highly encourage you to go on his website because they have monthly newsletters. I think it looks like to where your one last month talked about the loss of wild sounds and how human induced sounds affect wildlife without us, which might be the biggest effect on wildlife humans have without us even realizing it. Because your website was so enlightening because you talk about how much we've like affected the singing whales and different amphibians, not only with our own sounds, like maybe threatening them, but also they're unable to communicate with each other, and how it's a threat to different species. And I love too, like the average conversation that takes place is 60 decibels, with the motorcycle engine being like about 95 decibels on average. And when you factor in the terrestrial wildlife responds to noises as low as 40 decibels. So the average noise we produce can have such a tremendous effect on wildlife, because if we put ourselves into like an animal's position where we're laying down in our bed and we hear a loud noise at night, we're going to get startled and look out the window. And then the following night, we might be already a little bit on that high alert, just in case something happens. And then if we do get something and we're in the wild, all of a sudden something snakes past us, boom, we have an interaction with that animal. I mean, the domino effect by just noise alone, that definitely woke my eyes up too, where you consider highways going through and different side roads and hikers at night, and when you decide to go off a beaten path when you're on a hike, you might be disturbing so much, not only in foot traffic, but in noise and what your scent. And I never really knew any of that until like this deep dive in there. And it was so eye-opening to the effects that when you speak about, like what we talked about before, your mission of being human induced, a lot of this we don't even realize we're doing.
Yeah, thank you, Daniel, to bring back. I mean, to talk about that, because it's a very poorly known issue, the noise and the noise pollution induced by human, and it's such a huge effect into the animal world. We don't, of course, talk about it and don't realize so much, but the impact is actually tremendous. And the same way it is with the light. I just add the light as a pollution, the light at night. That creates a huge pollution and also induce extension in some species. Lights at night is extremely disturbing. Species are used to be nocturnal, meaning their habitat is at night with no light. And then when there's a full moon, which means there is light, they hide. So just imagine a place now we have light 24/7. It's like you, if, for example, if tomorrow we put light 24/7, even when you sleep.
Yeah.
You have no more night. That's the opposite. It's extremely stressful, and it's displacing a tremendous amount of species away. And it's the same as the noise, as you very well explained. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, and with light, that must anger every species, because the ones that are awake at night are like, "What's this light doing?" And then the ones that sleep at night are like, "What's with this light?" So
right, exactly. Yeah.
It's such a downer for everybody,
Correct.
And I love researching and reading about lions and the prides out in Africa too. And I know that once that full moon hits, that completely domino affects them, especially because they're hunting at night, especially the females on their own. They're hunting at night, and their advantage is they're able to just almost hide in plain sight, because their prey can only see, like humans, they can only see so far into the distance at night, and they could be almost right in front of their prey, and their prey can't see unless, if there's a full moon, their cover's a little blown, they're no longer James Bond there.
Correct. Yeah. That's correct. And you talk about the tiger. It's the same with with snakes. There's nocturnal snakes. We need
Oh,
the
I don't
night
want
to
to. I don't
hunt.
want to hear
If
that.
Okay.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Snakes aren't my thing. But keep going. Sorry.
So they use the heat of the prey to locate the prey at night. The night vision, of course, is very good, but if there's light, they can be seen, and they cannot they cannot hunt anymore. So as you see, yeah, the light is a huge issue. Yeah.
That is that is interesting too. How just when you look at the full moon, you enjoy it one way, but you have no idea the absolute insanity that throws. Because then, of course, I mean, that rolls into the next day, and then I guess the perfect way to describe it is just a domino effect when that happens. I
Right.
I wanted to get
Right.
your.
And
You go. Sorry.
Mhm. Yeah, no, I was just going to add another thing about lights, and the moon. For example, the coral reef, the corals, they have sporing. They sprout. They make the eggs um, during the full moon, so they need a full light for that. Now, and that happens only 2 or 3 times a year. This is a breeding event that happens all together. So the entire ecosystem, the coral reef, is full of eggs. So it's like snow when you go snorkeling at night during the full moon. Now, if you build a big city or complex with a lot of light near the shoreline, the light will be on all the time, and that will interfere with the breeding cycle of the corals. So you see, it's the full moon is important, and you need that that day and night, this event when it's very dark, and then suddenly it's you have the full moon bring back the light. So if it's light all the time, it's also will interfere with the ocean world, not only with that's what I wanted to add. It's not only the terrestrial, but it's also into the water. Yeah.
That's interesting too, because it's almost like redefining the word pollution. Because when we think of the word pollution, we think of smoke, or people throwing garbage in the in the ocean or in the rainforest. But we talk about noise pollution or light pollution. I mean, that's just as effective, because it changes wildlife. Where
Correct.
I mean, you're actually are polluting unknowingly, especially with noise and light too. I mean, you go out with your flashlight at night, even to walk on the beach, that could be affecting something, let alone, like a lighthouse being installed, or, a big development right on the beach being installed. I mean, that to itself could be considered habitat destruction, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And then nowadays, many cities are reducing their light at night. After certain hours, they turn off the light, the street lights, and bring back more trees and etc. And the wildlife is coming back. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, we saw that a little bit during COVID when everyone
I
was.
don't know where you live, if you have this, yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm down in Miami over here. So we have a lot of marine life, and so, but I was you saw a lot during COVID where people kind of retracted indoors a little bit, and then the wildlife started kind of exploring right back, which is crazy to think how quickly the lack of human presence explodes the presence of wildlife. Where I was starting to see videos of bobcats, starting to make their way closer to towns, and how they pick up on the lack of human presence, on trails and in the woods. And then they start kind of, I don't want to say overtaking the land again, but kind of regaining their presence in certain areas of the woods that they just really didn't have.
That's correct. And it's called, we call that resilience. And we saw that also in Chernobyl, in Russia, in Ukraine, sorry, where the entire area that is forbidden to go in, it's the wildlife is abounding. It's very, very healthy. It's incredible. Yeah, when human presence is removed, definitely the wildlife is coming back very quickly. That's the good news. It's a very good news, especially if you create a protected area. So there's, what I'm saying is we can do a lot to reverse the impact we're having and to have a better world.
Yeah, it's truly amazing how the earth and different species and humans and how we all just operate within each other. We're in a cause and effect of each other at a constant. It's so interesting how it works. And speaking of humans too, when we stick our it, even if it's the most well intended as well, when we stick our hands into something, how that can affect it. And I wanted to get your thoughts on this because I feel like I had a great intention. It was well intended on this, but then the more I think about it, are we having a negative impact on this? So I do a news show on Mondays and Thursdays afternoons, and I love to include wildlife and animals that are endangered, where their numbers, go up. And there was a red panda cub that was born in the Potter Zoo in Michigan last week. There was a red wolf born in Roger Williams Zoo back in May. And then there's a Sumatran tiger who I know is on the critically endangered list. For anyone who doesn't know that is, just think of the guy in the Frosted Flakes, right? But the Sumatran tiger gave birth to 2 Sumatran tiger cubs in a zoo in Oklahoma back in July. So I'm like, clap my hands, throwing it on the news show, like this is awesome stuff. But then I'm thinking, being raised in zoos, does that inhibit these tigers from being able to ever live and thrive in the wild again? Because we're putting our human touch on it where we think, oh, look at me, I'm, helping to increase the population. But at the same time, now you're making those tigers 100% reliant on humans to where those tigers can never function on their own in the wild again. I wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Okay, that's very good questions. So for some species, it's once they are bred into the zoo and raised into the zoo, they cannot put back into the wild. They will eventually die. They cannot adapt. For some other species, like for example, it could be the snakes, frogs. You could breed them into the zoo and release them back into the wild, and they will do fine. They will be like almost as if they were never left the wild. Assuming, of course, it's not so many generations after the other ones had been bred into the zoo, because then you're going to create some modifications. But if the lapse time is not too long enough, then for some species, it's no problem. But for many mammals, for example, it's out of questions. And also, before releasing back into the wild, you have to make sure that the wild is okay, meaning, the habitat is fine. And that's why they cannot bounce back into the wild, because the habitat is not fine, is not yet suitable. So first, before releasing, if we can release the animals, we have to make sure that the causes that are making those species almost extinct is removed, even locally. And many times it's simply there's not enough habitat. Like the species that you mentioned, they need a large, vast amount of habitat. You cannot protect just one wetland of let's say 2 acres. That's not enough, right? So that's all the issues we have to deal with.
Yeah, because I guess too, like take like the Sumatran tiger, right? I mean, if you release them back in the wild, I mean, are they even going to recognize like what a hyena is? If an elephant, like, are they even going to be able to, know what these are, be aware, know how to behave, know what's a threat, what's not a threat, especially if you're being led into at an adult age where maybe even your mother has been there in the zoo her whole life too, and now you're both, she hasn't passed down that knowledge, and maybe she doesn't have it herself. I mean, you're almost like a sitting duck then.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's possible, but that will be a very costly and long process. You would have to take the individuals back to Sumatra and go step by step. And at the end, all the money spent for one individual is maybe not worth it with that money, you could do more with the habitat and then help to what is left to, to recover.
Yeah. What are your thoughts with the
Minute,
oh,
yeah,
sorry, you go.
yeah, go ahead. Yeah, yeah.
What are your thoughts with the Sumatran tigers too? Is it because they're labeled by the as critically endangered? How I mean how bad are we talking here?
Yeah, the situation is so serious, and one of the reason is because its home range, like for example in Indonesia, uh, the situation of what is left of the rainforest and its habitat is so there. I mean, there's almost. I mean, the situation is just
It's dire.
exactly. It's heartbreaking. I mean, really, really, it feels so. I don't want to. I mean, it's terrible to think about that.
Yeah.
So we need to bring back the forest, and also there's a second problem. It's the overpopulation of human beings in this part of the world, and that's we talked about earlier: noise, light pollution, but there are unfortunately too many people in this part of the world, so there's too many conflicts with this kind of wildlife. Wildlife conflicts in overpopulated area is a big issue also, and it provoke human decline. I mean, sorry, the population declines of the endangered species. The same thing happens with elephant in Africa. Elephant invade so that they're hungry. They cannot find any more food because the habitat is very small, like the Sumatran tiger, and they go out their habitat to feed into for example the elephant to feed into the crops of the local people. The local people get very angry and hunt and kill the elephant. Same thing with the tiger. They will go out and eat prey onto animals, livestock of the local people, and the local people will after that kill the tiger. So the interference, the conflicts between the two worlds it's a main issue in this part of the world, and that has to be solved. That's why we're trying to work on this very difficult issue. It's not easy. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say because as soon as you said overpopulated and you brought up Indonesia, it popped in my mind. I mean, two areas that are hit pretty bad on this are areas like in Asia, China, and then
Mhm.
in India. And India next year is set to become the population king over China next year. And then you think, okay, well, demographically or geographically, where are these problems happening? And it's usually starting to be around where these overpopulated countries are being. So it's interesting that you had said that. I was like I was like, oh man, that makes so
Well,
much sense now.
well, in the 70s, the overpopulation was always talked. It was in the big news. There was books published. It was an issue, and then it disappeared, and now it started to come back. But basically, overpopulation is no question a problem for many wildlife. People expand, and they occupy the habitat of those species. Having said that, there's also another issue: is the way we live. Okay, it's obvious that somebody who lives in Africa, let's say in Kinshasa, in Congo, will have less impact than you and me, because our lifestyle. Okay, we consume more, etc. So there's two ways. Okay, the way we live, our consumption, but also the population growth. I think it's both together have to be integrated. I mean, it's both two problems. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you got to find that balance, man. Yeah.
Mm.
It's a good point. Before we finish off here, I got to ask
Mhm.
you this because especially how when we started talking too, I was like, oh, Pierre is in some dangerous territory. It sounds like a lot of the time, and I got to ask you. I mean, has your life ever been in true danger, whether that be when you're with indigenous people, or you're in the wild and you just run into actually like tigers, gorillas. People think that, they go in their backyard or they go on a hike, they're in the wild. I mean, Pierre is truly in the wild. When you're talking in the rainforest, the Amazon bison, I mean, you are in the thick of it, man. And has your, even like running into, say, poachers, I mean, that could be life threatening too. I mean, have you in your decades of doing this, I mean, is there a story you can share with us, or anytime you've truly been like,
Uh,
oh, and you were thankful to get out of there?
mm, Honestly, it happened to me many times where I thought my life was I was so close to die, basically. I can give you many examples. I'm trying to find some. Yeah. So, for example, in Africa, when we trek the forest, looking for gorillas, the things that you don't want to encounter usually, it's wild forest elephant. Wild forest elephant, especially females, female with the infant, they can be extremely dangerous, protecting their infant, and also because they are hunting in this part of the world. So they are very aggressive. They can be very aggressive towards human beings, and that happens suddenly. You might be trekking, and just about, I would say, 20 meters away, here we go, you have the elephant. And in this case, I mean, you have to make yourself very small and disappeared, because basically it could be like it happens already to some staff being injured by elephant. It's not like it's a real thing that can happen. But beside that, also you have all the tiny insects who can threaten and kill you. The one that you don't see every day. You have flies who put some worms inside your skin. You can have the mosquito give you malaria, etc., etc. So it's not only the big animals;
Yeah.
it's also the tiny ones, the insect, who can kill you and threaten your life. And of course, after that, as you mentioned, there's also some of the locals, so humans, who are not welcoming you, because they think they in the right way, that they're going to remove their living by hunting illegal animals, and that can be also a danger. It can be a danger.
Yeah.
There is a lot of times where there's a lot of tension. I have time also when we have to leave at night a village. There was too much threat. In the middle of the night, we have to live, basically live.
Like just
A
run.
tiny village. Run. I mean, in the morning, they were waiting for us. That's it.
Oh,
they were
damn.
finished. Yeah. Oh, really? I mean, and then when I said living, it was no fun. It's like walking also after the part of it into the wetland areas. It was so muddy. So it was a nightmare. And then you end up after that into a road, walk all night, hoping to a truck to pass by, because there's no buses, there's no cars. There's only trucks who pass by with goods once every week. Basically, and we're hoping to have a truck arrive. Finally, by luck, we pick up a truck, but 2 hours later, the pickup broke down. So you have to wait for another truck to pass by, or try to fix the current truck. So we had to sleep under the truck because it was raining hard. Anyways, to make the story short, it can be quite painful, actually. It's not very easy, beautiful physically and mentally. There's times where it's very tough. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean, just from the sounds of it, I mean, the stress alone, the mental stress outside of the inclement weather, the animals that when you're booking it out of the woods, you might be stepping on a very venomous snake, something dangerous. You might be walking right through a tiger who's sleeping, and let it go alone, like the elephants you had brought up before. It was interesting when you had said make yourself small with elephants. Are humans able to outrun elephants?
Well, no.
No,
The
really.
elephant once the elephant go after you, it's going to go faster. It's going to destroy the entire vegetation in front of you. It's going to go. The thing is, when I say small, first you just bend and make yourself very small and make him understand you don't have a gun or you're not going aiming at him, because basically they know they've been hunted in this area, so they can see so they will see very quickly your behavior. They are very smart animals, so they will approach you very, very, very close, and they will give a chance to escape slowly. Okay, and after that you run away. Okay, but you really want to make you small,
Mhm.
and after that run away. They will give you a chance, but I had also elephant. For example, I was in this big river in Congo, and we were in a small boat, so going towards upstream in the middle of the rainforest, and there was basically an elephant who saw us, and he was following us along the riverbanks, trying to push us away along the river. So and also they can be aggressive, And even my guys with me, my African friends, were even scared, even in the boat, because
Mhm.
he was making a lot of noise, and we could see that it was a female. She was not happy for us to be around, even though we were in the boat. We were safe, but we felt the threat. It was very, very intense. Yeah.
Yeah, it almost sounds like they're like the hippos of the forest.
Yeah, well, yeah, and then the hippo also can be extremely dangerous. Also, many times when we see tracks of hippo, we turn around and we take another track. We're not trying to go into a hippo territory, especially if you see fresh mark. You go away immediately. You're not staying there.
Oh
That's
yeah.
extremely dangerous.
Yeah, those things are. I mean, it's almost like every single hippo on human Earth has an
Yeah,
anger issue. You know what I'm
yeah.
saying? I
Well,
mean,
the mortality is there. The locals knows it. I mean, you will die. I mean, a good chance you could die. Yeah.
yeah, because they're quick. I mean, they got the jaws of
Yeah.
like a crocodile. I mean,
Hmm.
geez, I mean, it's dangerous out there, man. I'm glad
Yeah.
you're able
Yeah.
to kind of give us that firsthand experience, because this is amazing stuff, Pierre. I mean, really, stay safe when you're out there, man. I mean, be
Sure.
careful,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
that's
Yeah. We will. Of course, we are safe, and we do. The best is to know your environment and to be with the people who knows also.
yeah, and where and it's Endangered Species International, guys. If you're listening, and where can people really find you if you have a social media presence or a website presence, to where they can either make donations, they can look up, see how you guys are doing, view the newsletter. I have a ton of friends that are such animal lovers that are dying to get a good job in the environmental field too. So I know you guys do have that employment section on there too. So I'd encourage people to take a look at that if it's something you're interested in. Because I mean, especially
Hmm.
I mean, you're at the top of the food chain of the organization too, and everyone can see just what an amazing guy you are and how committed and hands on you are.
Mhm. So basically, if everybody can check us on endangeredspeciesinternational.org. You can go to our website, and you can also donate directly through our website. Um, we used to have a Facebook, but I think it's not up and running. I don't follow that closely, obviously. But the best way is to go to our website, and you can contact us through emails, and there's always somebody to reply whatever you're looking for. An experience, a volunteer experience, etc. But be aware that most of our experience are abroad. So it can be tough also and challenging, but also very learning and rewarding. But also you will be able to see the true effect of our work by example, seeing planting trees in rainforest and seeing what we planted before and see the difference. So basically, anything that you will do to support us, it doesn't matter if it's through your volunteer time for your ideas, through financial help, will have a tremendous help, helping the animals and helping ourselves as well, yeah, as human being.
Yeah. Well, that's just it's all amazing stuff. And thanks so much, Pierre, for coming on today and sharing your story and information about your organization too, because it helps broaden people's minds on really how endangered some of these species are too. And once they're gone, they're gone. I mean, there's no takebacks on this. There's no respawn. I mean,
yes, and our world will be more poorer, more not as much more fun. There's less curiosity. And Danielle, thank you for having me here, because I know that it's not talked enough. Very few people are still not aware of all these issues.
Yeah, they're not, and I feel like this should be on the top of news channels every day. Is a lot of this
correct.
a lot of this stuff too, because I mean I love so much too. You're like boots on the ground. You're in it. Your hands deep, because you're the one who knows everything what's going on too. You're not, it's not like a stats thing and you're in a suit and kind of like talking here and there. I mean, you're sharing stories, you're there, and you're going to keep doing it. I love that about it. It's you guys are amazing, and I'm only disappointed that I didn't know about you guys sooner. But that's all right, Pierre. I'm definitely gonna stay in touch with you, man. I'm sure I'll see you down the road too. And be safe, man. Be careful out there. All right.
Yeah, I will. I promise.
All right.
We have so much work to do. So yeah.
Well, it sounds good,
But
Pierre.
thank you so much again. Yeah.
No problem, man. I'll see you down the road, I'm sure.
Excellent.
With every star